If you fix this engine, I'll marry you." The CEO's laughter was a brittle sound, her cold blue eyes glinting with undeniable contempt as she spoke, utterly dismissing the man's capabilities. Little did she know that this sarcastic challenge would ignite a journey destined to irrevocably alter the course of her life. The October rain fell in relentless sheets, as if the very sky was determined to scour away every last vestige of summer. Sarah Wellington's gleaming Mercedes coughed, slowed, and finally died on Route 47, a desolate stretch of highway approximately 3 miles from Milbrook. In an instant, the only sounds were the incessant drumming of rain against the car's roof and the angry hiss of steam escaping from beneath the hood. Sarah stared in alarm as heat billowed upward, resembling the furious breath of some unseen dragon. "Perfect," she muttered, a bitter edge to her voice. She glanced at her watch, then stepped out in her delicate Chanel stilettos, only to feel cold water instantly seep into her feet. Her impeccably tailored suit was thoroughly drenched within mere seconds. In the distance, a rusty, faded sign swayed precariously in the gusting wind, its worn lettering still miraculously legible. "Jackson Auto Repair. Fair prices. Honest work." With a reluctant sigh, Sarah hurried toward the small garage, its shabby exterior causing her to frown in disdain. Inside, the air was thick with the distinct scent of motor oil, mingled with the stale aroma of old coffee. Flickering fluorescent lights cast a dim, unsteady glow over the cramped, cluttered space. "Is anyone here?" Sarah called out, her voice sharp with impatience. Slowly, a man emerged from beneath a faded blue pickup truck, wiping grease from his once clean coveralls. As he straightened, his eyes, though kind, held a weary depth. This was Michael, a 32-year-old black man with a sturdy build and a face that was both rugged and gently expressive. His short, curly hair framed a broad forehead, and his deep-set eyes seemed to have witnessed countless storms. "Having trouble, ma'am?" Michael asked, his voice unexpectedly warm. Sarah crossed her arms, shivering from the cold and bristling with irritation at her predicament. "It just died on me," she snapped, a tremor of panic in her tone. "I have a crucial meeting in Chicago at 8 a.m. tomorrow. This simply cannot be happening." Michael nodded understandingly, then retrieved his toolbox and stepped out into the pouring rain. In a matter of moments, he had popped the hood and began examining the engine with swift, precise movements. Raindrops streamed down his shirt, darkening the fabric with each passing second. Sarah hovered nearby, anxiously scrolling through messages on her phone, her anxiety mounting with every beat of her heart as she watched Michael probe beneath the hood. After a few minutes, he gently closed the hood and spoke, his voice grave. "The cooling system shot, ma'am. Cracked radiator, ruined water pump. I'm afraid it's not a quick fix." Sarah's brow furrowed. "How long will it take?" Michael paused, as if calculating, then replied softly, "About 2 to 3 days. I'll need to order parts from out of town." She shook her head, a flash of fierce determination in her eyes. "Name your price. I'll pay double or triple for expedited shipping." Michael looked up, meeting her gaze with a serious yet honest expression. "Ma'am, money won't make the parts arrive any faster. Some things only get solved with time." Sarah's frustration boiled over, her voice rising. "Everything in this world can be bought with money, Jackson." Michael offered a faint, almost mournful smile, shaking his head gently. Not everything, Miss Wellington, he murmured, his gaze steady. Some things are far more precious than money. Sarah stood momentarily stunned by the mechanic's quiet, unyielding resolve. She was accustomed to a world where wealth and influence effortlessly solved every problem. For the very first time, she felt utterly, completely helpless. Just then, a clear, childish voice echoed from the back of the garage. "Daddy, is someone out there?" They both turned to see a tiny girl, no older than 5, clad in pink unicorn pajamas and clutching a worn teddy bear. Her curious eyes, wide with innocent wonder, fixed on Sarah as she toddled towards Michael. Michael knelt, a soft smile gracing his lips. "Emma, come inside, sweetie. It's too cold out here." Emma shook her head, her bright gaze unwavering as she looked at Sarah. "My dad's the best mechanic in the world. He can fix anything." Despite her gnawing frustration, Sarah couldn't help but feel a reluctant smile touch her own lips at the child's unshakable confidence. Michael gently patted Emma's head, then turned back to Sarah, his voice warm and calm. "There's a small inn not far from here. I think you should wait there for now." Sarah remained motionless in the pouring rain, watching as Michael and Emma disappeared into the inviting warmth of the garage. A strange, unfamiliar sensation welled up within her. For the first time, she felt diminished, humbled by the quiet power of genuine kindness and simplicity. Night had fully descended, the rain still relentless, and fate, in its subtle way, was quietly guiding Sarah onto a completely different path. One that promised to challenge every value she had ever held dear. She stood there, watching the garage door close behind the small figures of Emma and Michael. The warm, yellow light that spilled from within formed a faint, comforting halo on the damp ground. A tight, uncomfortable feeling solidified in her chest. Sarah was accustomed to absolute control, to seeing people bend to her will, especially when she was prepared to pay any price. But this time she had encountered an insurmountable barrier, one that neither power nor money could budge. Michael Jackson's quiet, unwavering resolve. No one had ever dared to outright refuse Sarah Wellington before, and the denial only fueled the simmering anger within her. She drew a deep breath, trying to quell the rising indignation, then pushed the garage door open once more and stepped back inside. Inside, Michael was gently settling Emma onto a small chair beside the workbench, carefully draping an old but clean wool blanket over her tiny shoulders. Witnessing these tender gestures only heightened Sarah's unease. She decided to approach again, her tones softer and more subtly persuasive this time. "Mr. Jackson," she began, "I truly need this car ready by tomorrow morning. This isn't personal. It's absolutely critical for business. I'm willing to pay 5 times the usual rate, even more if necessary. I just need the car to run at least well enough to get to Chicago." Michael looked up, his eyes steady and unwavering in the face of her tempting offer. He straightened, wiping the grease from his hands with a stained rag, and calmly replied, "Miss Wellington, it's not about the money you pay me. Your car's damage isn't something you can patch up quickly." He paused, his voice turning serious. "If I rush it, it could fail completely and leave you in a worse spot on the road. I do this job not just to earn a living, but because I believe your safety is paramount." Sarah heard his sincere words as a direct challenge, completely at odds with the way she conducted her daily affairs. In her corporate world, safety and personal concerns always took a distant back seat to profit and speed. She gritted her teeth, fighting to maintain her composure, and pressed harder. "Do you understand what I'm facing, Mr. Jackson? 300 employees depend on the decisions I make at tomorrow's meeting. If I don't show up on time, my company will suffer massive losses. Think bigger. This isn't just a technical issue." Michael remained unmoved, yet his eyes flickered with a sharper, more intense resolve. "I understand perfectly, Miss Wellington, but you must also understand that pressure, influence, and money can't force someone to do the impossible. Some things require patience and proper time. Your luxury car may be special, but it's still a machine that needs careful repair, not a quick fix." Sarah felt her blood burn hotter as Michael's words cut through her carefully constructed control. "Don't you know who you're talking to? I'm Sarah Wellington, CEO of Wellington Foods. I know nearly every powerful person in Chicago. Are you sure you want to pick a fight with me?" Michael offered a slight, knowing smile, yet his resolve remained rock solid. "I know exactly who you are, Miss Wellington, but in this little garage, every customer is equal. You're not here as a CEO. You're here as a driver whose car broke down, and I'm here not to be pressured, but to fix cars as well as I can." Sarah clenched her fists, a heady mix of powerlessness and anger roaring inside her. She had never been this helpless before, facing a simple mechanic in a small town who clearly wouldn't be swayed by her money or status. Just then, Emma's sleepy voice drifted from the chair. "Daddy, why is she so angry? Can you help her?" Michael bent to gently smooth his daughter's tight curls, his eyes full of love and concern. "I'm trying to help her, sweetheart. But not everyone understands that." Sarah felt as if she'd been splashed with ice water. Even a child recognized her overreaction, yet she remained blind to it. In that moment, she realized how alien her own arrogance looked when held up against Michael and Emma's simple humanity. Silence settled over the garage. Outside, the rain still pounded, as if craving to wash away the emotions flooding everyone's hearts. Sarah took a small step back, locking eyes with Michael. For the first time, her gaze carried a flicker of doubt and surrender. "I'll go to that inn you mentioned, but tomorrow morning I have to get on the road. I hope you understand how important this is." Michael nodded, unshaken. "I fully understand, Miss Wellington. But you should also be prepared that no matter how important, some things cannot be forced." Sarah turned and hurried out, anger and disappointment warring within her. The garage door slammed shut behind her, a final punctuation on their failed negotiation. And the first time Sarah Wellington truly felt powerless in her life. The garage door slammed behind Sarah like a final furious period on their failed negotiation. She stood there in the bitter cold rain, heavy drops soaking her slender shoulders as she trembled with anger and a profound sense of powerlessness. In a life always surrounded by the boundless reach of money and influence, this was the first time Sarah had ever felt truly small in the face of something she couldn't buy or force with her status. Authenticity. Sarah sighed, about to turn and walk away, when a soft voice drifted from the now closed garage door, gentle yet insistent enough to stop her in her tracks. "Miss, where are you going?" Startled, Sarah turned and looked down to see Emma Jackson standing there. Her round, clear eyes were wide, clutching a battered teddy bear. The little girl's pink unicorn pajamas stood out brightly against the gloomy, rain-swept backdrop. Sarah hesitated, meeting the child's innocent gaze, a mix of curiosity and concern that made Emma impossibly endearing. I was going to the nearby inn to rest for a bit, Sarah stammered, trying to hide her confusion and deep disappointment. Emma tilted her head, her eyes sparkling with interest. Why don't you stay here and have some hot cocoa? My dad makes the best hot cocoa ever. Whenever it rains like this, we sit by the window, drink cocoa, and read fairy tales. There was something irresistibly sincere in Emma's invitation. For the first time in her life, Sarah felt completely disarmed by such a simple, carefree offer. She managed a small smile as the weight in her chest lightened just a bit. Hot cocoa, huh? That does sound tempting, sweetheart. Emma beamed and darted back into the garage, her tiny feet pattering on the concrete. Daddy, make hot cocoa, quick! She said yes! Michael looked up in surprise to see Sarah standing at the threshold. A flicker of confusion crossed his face, then softened when he saw Emma's radiant smile. Then please come inside. I'll make you something warm. Sarah stepped slowly into the garage, where the soft yellow glow of a single overhead bulb made the space feel unexpectedly cozy. She settled onto an old wooden chair, her gaze drifting to a row of photographs on the wall. Snapshots of Michael and Emma at a town fair, a picnic in the park, a quiet moment of father and daughter reading by the window. A strange, undefinable feeling washed over Sarah. Such simple, cherished moments had no place in her glamorous but utterly lonely world. Here you go. My special hot cocoa, Emma announced, carefully handing Sarah a steaming mug. Tiny marshmallows were arranged like little flowers on top. A gentle warmth spread through Sarah at the sight. Thank you, Emma. It looks beautiful, Sarah said softly. Emma settled beside her, eyes shining with pride as she glanced toward Michael, who quietly observed them from the corner. My daddy's the best in the world. He can fix cars, of course, but he also tells the best stories, cooks, sings lullabies, and even fixes my broken toys. Sarah looked into Emma's clear, trusting eyes and felt the pure pride and love the girl held for her father. For the first time, she truly understood that some of life's most precious things simply couldn't be bought or commanded. Genuine affection, unshakable pride, and unconditional love. Feeling an unexpected tenderness, Sarah asked, her voice softer than ever, Where's your mother, Emma? The small smile slipped from Emma's face as she hugged her teddy bear closer. She left, the little girl murmured. Daddy says she didn't like living here because it was too small and boring. I don't remember her well. She left when I was little, but I think Daddy misses her a lot. A lump formed in Sarah's throat as a wave of unexpected compassion welled up inside her. She glanced toward Michael, who had turned away to pretend he was busy, subtly hiding the sadness that flickered in his eyes. In that moment, she realized how much she and Michael had in common, both carrying deep, unspoken loneliness. Emma looked up at Sarah, her voice gentle and earnest. But I'm not sad because I have Daddy. He always says that no matter what happens, we'll be happy together. Sarah nodded, a genuine warm smile finally reaching her lips for the first time that tense evening. Her heart felt strangely full, touched by the simple sincerity of this little girl. An angel fate had sent her way on a stormy night to teach her an invaluable lesson about love and truth. Sarah sat quietly at the small wooden table in the corner of the garage, her eyes fixed on the thin tendrils of steam rising from her hot cocoa. A gentle warmth spread through her body, dispelling some of the cold and tension she'd felt all evening. Emma had returned to the little chair by the window, clutching her teddy bear as her eyelids drifted shut in peaceful slumber. Michael stepped over and draped a worn but clean wool blanket around the girl's shoulders. His gaze tender and loving, as if Emma were his whole world. Sarah realized that in this humble, slightly weathered space, there was something her upscale condo and lavish office had never offered: genuine family love. Michael approached quietly, carrying a steaming cup of coffee. He set it gently on the table before Sarah, then sat in the chair opposite her, pausing for a long moment as though choosing his words carefully. "I'm sorry if I put you in an awkward spot earlier, Miss Wellington," he began, "but I believe that safety and doing things right matter most, whether it's a car or a life." Sarah took a sip of the coffee. Its warmth and subtle bitterness eased her mood considerably. She shook her head, her voice more sincere than before. "No, I'm the one who should apologize. I overreacted. I'm used to everything going my way." Michael offered a small, understanding smile. "I imagine a CEO's life must be very stressful, with little time to relax or notice life's small moments." Sarah nodded without thinking, gazing out the window at the steady rain. In that instant, she felt oddly fragile, as if the hard shell she'd built around herself was beginning to crack. "You know, I never thought I'd find myself here," she admitted, "in a tiny town garage, drinking hot cocoa and talking about ordinary things. It's so strange, but also comforting." Michael nodded gently, his eyes distant. He replied softly, "Life sometimes brings us to places we never imagined. I had a completely different life once, but everything changed so fast. I had to learn to adapt, to be strong, not just for myself, but for Emma." Sarah turned to look at him, her expression softening. For the first time that evening, she truly saw the real Michael Jackson, a man quietly carrying a heavy responsibility. "What happened with your wife?" she asked, her voice gentle, careful not to shatter the delicate moment. Michael took a deep breath and looked down at his coffee. His voice was low but steady, filled with both sorrow and unwavering resolve. "My wife's name was Linda. We'd loved each other since high school. But 2 years after Emma was born, Linda started feeling trapped by small-town life. She dreamed of a bigger, bustling city, thinking there were more opportunities and wealth. One day she told me she couldn't stay any longer. She left the town, leaving Emma and me behind, and never returned." He paused, as if to hold back a surge of emotions. Then he looked up, his eyes brighter yet carrying a hidden pain. "I was devastated. But when I looked into Emma's innocent, vulnerable eyes, I knew I couldn't give up. Emma needed me, a strong father who loved her and had the strength to help her through the pain I was also feeling." Sarah listened in silence, her heart aching at his honesty. In that moment, Michael was no longer just a mechanic. He was a great father, a man who had faced his own suffering with dignity and unwavering responsibility. Michael continued softly, as if speaking more to himself than to her. "I've learned something important through all this. Happiness isn't in the distant things we chase. Happiness is right here, in the small moments we already have. I have Emma, and that's the greatest gift of my life. No amount of money can buy that kind of love." Sarah felt a profound shift in her chest. For the first time, she truly understood what he meant. She'd lived in a world where everything was for sale, where emotions felt like cold transactions. But here, in this modest garage, she had discovered a warm, genuine light that touched her long-frozen heart. She gently set her cocoa down and met his gaze, her voice trembling but sincere. "Thank you, Michael. I'm deeply moved by what you've shared. I think I've learned more in one evening than I have in years." Michael smiled warmly and nodded. "Sometimes we just need a small moment like this to find life's true meaning. Don't we, Miss Wellington?" Sarah returned his smile, feeling the invisible walls around her begin to melt away, revealing the tender heart she'd hidden for so long behind her icy exterior. The garage's hush wrapped around Sarah and Michael, broken only by the soft patter of rain outside and the steady breathing of Emma, fast asleep. Sarah glanced at the little girl, Emma's face, bathed in the warm glow of the desk lamp, looked so innocent and peaceful. A faint smile touched Sarah's lips, then quickly faded, replaced by a deep, aching sadness. "Do you have children, Miss Wellington?" Emma's gentle voice suddenly rang out. The little girl had woken and was looking up at Sarah with clear, curious eyes. Startled, Sarah forced a gentle smile. "No, Emma. I don't have any children." Emma blinked in puzzlement. "Then do you have a family? What is your family like?" Sarah fell silent, her breath catching at the innocence and piercing insight of the question. Michael opened his mouth to gently remind his daughter to mind her manners, but Sarah put up a calming hand. She looked deep into Emma's wide eyes and, for the first time in her life, felt unable to evade that pure sincerity. "Yes, Emma. Everyone has a family," Sarah said softly, her voice distant. "But my family is a bit different from the ones you know." Emma tilted her head, concern knitting her brow. "Why is it different? Isn't a family where parents and children love each other?" Emma's simple question cut through Sarah's thick armor like a knife, exposing wounds she'd hidden for years. Memories of her childhood rushed back, when family meant something very different. She remembered the giant, chilly house in the suburbs where she lived with her parents, but rarely saw them. Dinners around the grand dining table featured elaborate dishes, but not a single laugh. Housekeepers drifted through like ghosts, doing their tasks and vanishing. Sarah grew up in oppressive silence, where academic success and career achievement were her parents' only measures of love. "I grew up in a very large house," Sarah began slowly, her eyes misting as the memories surged. "But everyone in that house was always busy. My parents worked from dawn until late at night. They hardly ever had time to talk to me. As a child, I'd play alone in my room with expensive toys. But I always felt lonely and sad." Emma's eyes widened with empathy. "Didn't your parents ever tell you bedtime stories? Or take you to the park?" Sarah shook her head, swallowing back tears. "No, Emma. My parents thought those things were a waste of time. They only wanted me to study hard and grow up quickly to become someone successful like them." Michael listened quietly, his face full of understanding, as if he'd endured similar loneliness himself. Sarah felt an odd relief in finally sharing those painful memories with a stranger. "I used to think I'd be happy if I had lots of money and a high position, so my parents would be proud of me and love me more," Sarah continued, her voice trembling with emotion. "But as I grew older, once I had those things, I still wasn't happy. I realized that money and success couldn't fill the emptiness inside my heart." Emma scooted closer and placed her small hand on Sarah's, her gaze full of genuine compassion. "I think you're sad," Because you've never had someone who loves you for real. Like my dad loves me. Maybe all you need is someone who truly cares. Sarah was struck by the maturity and sensitivity of this 5-year-old. She looked down at Emma's tiny hand in hers and felt for the first time real warmth from such genuine concern. Maybe you're right, Emma. I've never had anyone love me just because of who I am, not for my money or status. I always thought I didn't need anyone, but I might have been wrong. Michael spoke softly, his voice warm and understanding. I believe everyone needs someone to share life's joys and sorrows. No matter how strong you are, you can't be alone forever. Perhaps now is the time to rethink that, Miss Wellington. Sarah met Michael's eyes, her expression filled with gratitude and raw emotion. In that moment, she was no longer the powerful CEO Sarah Wellington. She was simply a woman yearning for the love and genuine care she had never known. A profound, aching sorrow welled up inside her. She understood now that this chance encounter with Michael and Emma on a stormy night was the turning point she had unknowingly been waiting for. The moment she began to face the truth she had long avoided. She was truly lonely, and it was time to change that. The silence in the garage drifted away gently, leaving Sarah with thoughts she'd never before confronted. She felt a flicker of embarrassment, realizing she'd shared her deepest secrets with people who had been strangers only hours ago. Yet something in Michael's honest eyes and Emma's carefree innocence erased any sense of distance between them. Outside, the rain had eased to a soft patter against the garage roof. Michael glanced at his watch and spoke carefully. I'm guessing you must be pretty hungry by now. How about we head to a little diner nearby? It's not fancy, but the food's great and it's warm inside. Sarah hesitated, but Emma's eager eyes encouraged her, and she nodded. Yes, that sounds nice. I think I'd like that. Emma's face lit up. She scampered off for her little coat, chattering excitedly. You'll love Maggie's, Miss Sarah. They have the best apple pie in the world. Sarah couldn't help smiling at the child's enthusiasm. She had never imagined a simple dinner at a small-town diner could feel so comforting. Michael led Sarah and Emma out of the garage. They walked along the narrow street, puddles still gleaming under soft street lights. Milbrook looked peaceful, so different from the glaring neon and endless noise of the big city where Sarah lived. A few minutes later, they arrived at Maggie's, a small white house with a low wooden fence and flower boxes by the door. Inside, warm yellow lights shone over simple wooden tables and chairs. Mrs. Maggie, the kindly middle-aged owner, greeted them with a broad smile. Hello, Michael. Hello, sweet Emma. Bringing a friend tonight? Michael returned her smile. Yes, this is Miss Sarah Wellington. Her car had some trouble, so she's spending the night here. Mrs. Maggie's genuine welcome warmed Sarah's heart. Welcome to Milbrook, Miss Wellington. I hope you enjoy the food and the company. Unlike the formal dinners Sarah usually attended, where everyone wore perfect masks and conversations were carefully curated, this felt natural and wonderfully genuine. Michael and Emma ordered their favorites, grilled cheese sandwiches, hot tomato soup, and, of course, the famous apple pie. Sarah paused only a moment before joining them. Soon they were all seated around a small table, enjoying a simple yet delicious meal in the cozy glow of Maggie's. Emma chattered happily about school, her friends, and the picnics she and her dad took by the lake. Sarah listened quietly, finding each little story both foreign and precious. Unbidden, she remembered the extravagant dinners in Chicago, always polite smiles, always picking complicated, expensive dishes she never truly tasted. Here, a plain grilled cheese sandwich seemed extraordinary, a flavor she'd never known in her glamorous life. Michael's voice drew her attention. He looked at her earnestly and asked, "City life must be very different, and full of challenges, right, Miss Wellington?" She met his gaze and nodded, a note of regret in her voice. "Very different. My life revolves around meetings and decisions. Someone is always waiting on me. Sometimes I feel buried by responsibilities and pressure that never end." Michael nodded with understanding. "I think sometimes we need to step outside our familiar world, even for a moment, to see what we truly need. Maybe you just needed a little time and space like this." Sarah fell silent, absorbing his words. She looked around at the sincerity and closeness of this place. These folks in this small town were neither wealthy nor famous, but they lived authentically and supported each other. It gave her a peace she'd never known. Suddenly, her phone buzzed, fracturing the calm. She glanced at the screen. Her assistant's name flooded with urgent messages about tomorrow's crucial meeting. But this time, she didn't rush to reply. Sarah set the phone down, smiled gently at Michael and Emma, and said, "I think I'll stay here a little longer tonight. Maybe I've finally found what I've really been looking for." Emma clapped her small hands with delight, and Michael looked at Sarah with warmth, respect, and deep understanding. In that little diner, Sarah Wellington, the powerful CEO, chose, for the first time in her life, to put down her burdens, slow down, and seek the true peace she'd unknowingly given up so many years ago. The peaceful moment at Maggie's was abruptly shattered when the doorbell rang. Sarah started, her gaze instinctively snapping to the door as it swung open. A tall figure in an expensive suit stepped inside, his cold eyes sweeping the cozy diner with blatant contempt. Sarah's heart froze when she recognized him as Richard Harris, Vice President of Wellington Foods, the biggest rival within her own company, and the man who had long sought to unseat her as CEO. Richard's eyes narrowed with a cruel glint as he spotted her, a mocking half-smile playing on his lips. "Well, well, what a surprise to find you here, Sarah," he said coolly, striding straight to her table and pulling out a chair without waiting for an invitation. "Who would have thought the mighty CEO of Wellington Foods would waste her precious time in some backwater town?" His gaze drifted to Michael and Emma, his expression dripping with disdain. "And these are your new friends, I presume? How quaint that you choose to hobnob with locals like this." Under the table, Sarah clenched her fist, her voice ice-cold. "Richard, what are you doing here? I didn't recall inviting you." Richard shrugged, unfazed by her hostility. "I came to remind you of your responsibilities, Sarah. You missed a critical board meeting in Chicago this morning, and word that you're stranded here has spread everywhere. The board is starting to seriously question your leadership. That's unacceptable for a CEO of your stature." Sarah forced herself to stay calm, inhaling deeply to keep her anger in check. "I'll handle it. Where I am right now has nothing to do with you, Richard." Leaning forward, Richard's voice dropped dangerously low. "Oh, but it does. It concerns me and the future of this company very much. If you don't return and clean up this mess you've caused, I guarantee you won't remain CEO for much Longer. Maybe you should accept that and hand the job over to someone more deserving." He shot a sneer toward Michael. "Instead of sitting here sipping hot cocoa with some unknown mechanic." Michael said nothing, but Sarah saw the tension tighten his features. A flash of hurt crossed his eyes at Richard's cutting insult, and he instinctively shielded Emma with an arm, the little girl looking at Richard with wide anxiety. A fierce rage, unlike anything she'd ever felt, surged through Sarah. She rose to her feet, her eyes ice-cold as she faced Richard, her voice firm and unwavering. "Richard, let me remind you this CEO position I earned through my own skill and contributions, not through petty threats or underhanded schemes. Whether I spend time here or meet whoever I choose has no bearing on my competence, and I will not tolerate you insulting Michael or anyone else again." Richard faltered, taken aback by her rare show of defiance. He laughed harshly, trying to mask his anger. "You truly surprise me, Sarah. You, so always composed and logical, defending a worthless stranger." Sarah's eyes blazed with resolve. "You don't understand a thing, Richard. The man you insulted is a wonderful father, a decent man with dignity, qualities you'll never grasp, and I will never allow you to insult him again. Now, kindly leave." Enraged, Richard stood up so quickly his chair scraped the floor. His face reddened with fury. "Fine, Sarah. I'll go. But remember, today I'll make you pay dearly for this foolish decision, and when you've lost everything, you'll regret defending this meaningless little town and its ordinary people." With that, he stormed out, leaving a heavy tension in his wake. Sarah sank back into her chair, her heart pounding. For the first time, she felt the fierce internal struggle between material ambition and the deep desire to protect the simple good things in life. Michael gently placed a hand on her shoulder, his tone warm with gratitude. "Thank you, Sarah. I'm sorry I got you into this." Sarah looked into his eyes, and for the first time, truly saw his worth. She offered him a confident smile. "No, Michael, you don't need to apologize. I'm the one who should thank you. Because of you and Emma, I now know what I truly want to protect, what's truly worth fighting for." In that moment, Sarah realized that defending Michael and Emma against Richard's insult was the most pivotal decision of her life, a decision that led her out of the darkness of pressure and coldness, and closer to the warm light of genuine love and truth she had always longed for. When the first light of morning filtered through the small window, Sarah knew she could no longer delay. The confrontation with Richard Harris the night before still haunted her. The echo of his icy, threatening words reminded her that her brief respite in Milbrook was over. Reality was calling her back to Chicago and the heavy responsibilities waiting there. Michael had finished repairing her car as quickly as he could. As he saw her off, his gaze was filled with deep concern. "Sarah," he said quietly, "no matter what happens, remember you always have a place to come back to." Sarah offered a gentle smile, her voice a mix of gratitude and lingering emotion. "I won't forget, Michael. Thank you, and thank you, Emma, for everything." She drove away from the town, the warm comfort she'd felt ebbing away, and given rise to a growing anxiety as she headed back to the city and the myriad problems that awaited her. When she entered the boardroom at Wellington Foods, the atmosphere was stifling with tension. Cold, scrutinizing eyes from the board members bore into her, full of doubt. Richard Harris sat at the head of the table, a smug look of triumph flitting across his face. "Welcome back, Sarah," Richard said first, his tone icy. "I hope you have a satisfactory explanation for your unaccounted absence these past few days." Sarah took a steadying breath, forcing herself to remain calm under the board's piercing stares. "My car broke down on a business trip and I was stranded in a small town. I did my best to handle crucial matters remotely." Richard let out a derisive chuckle, scanning the room as if to fan the flames of their skepticism. "Reasonable enough, I suppose. But is that enough to appease shareholders and clients when your absence has driven our stock down over 5% in 2 days? Another board member, David Hamilton, usually neutral, spoke up. "Sarah, I'm very disappointed. We've always trusted your capabilities, but clearly you've let personal matters overshadow your professional responsibilities. That's unacceptable." Sarah felt each word and each glare as a blow. For the first time in years at the helm, she felt utterly isolated. The cold judgment of colleagues she had once considered allies revealed the harsh truth of the world she'd been striving to master. Richard seized the moment, his voice cutting. "If you cannot strike a balance between emotion and reason, I'm afraid the CEO role may no longer suit you. We need a leader who makes decisive choices without personal feelings clouding the company's interests." Sarah clenched her hands beneath the table. Richard's words sliced through her pride and self-worth, but the deepest pain came from the board's silent agreement, people she believed would stand by her no matter what. She looked around the room, her voice ringing with genuine emotion for the first time. "I understand your disappointment. I have always believed that our work and the company's success were my top priorities, and I've spent years building what we have. But over the past few days, I realized that success means nothing without authenticity, empathy, and truly valuable principles." She paused, fixing her gaze on Richard with unprecedented resolve. "I do not regret spending time in that small town because it taught me what matters more than profits or stock prices. If the board believes this makes me unfit to lead, I am prepared to accept the consequences." Richard sneered, shaking his head in feigned dismay. "How touching, Sarah. But emotions don't pay the bills. They don't guarantee returns to shareholders, and they certainly won't save your job. We will call a vote of confidence soon, and I think you know how that will turn out." Sarah felt as though she were backed into a corner. Every word from Richard, squeezing the air from her lungs. Yet amidst her despair, she remembered Emma's clear eyes and Michael's kindness, things she had never truly known in her cutthroat business world. She stood, took a deep breath to steady herself, and spoke calmly but firmly. "If the board wishes to hold a vote, I will respect that decision. But before any final judgment, I ask everyone to carefully consider the values we're really pursuing. Because profits and success are meaningless if we lose our humanity and compassion." With that, Sarah turned and walked out of the room, leaving a heavy silence behind her. She realized that the values she had chased, money, status, power, were hollow. For the first time, she questioned whether those pursuits were worth the sacrifices and loneliness they had cost her. The boardroom door closed behind Sarah, but she knew the most important battle still lay ahead. The chill in the room came not only from the suspicious glances, but from the bitter truth of the values she'd long pursued. Yet now Sarah was determined not to back down. She drew, A deep breath, steeled herself, and stepped back in, her gaze calm, but more resolute than ever. "I have a proposal I'd like to present to the board." Sarah's voice rang out, cutting through the heavy silence. Richard looked up, his sharp eyes full of mocking surprise. "Another heartfelt speech, Sarah. I thought we'd heard enough." Unfazed by his taunt, Sarah moved to the head of the table, planted both hands on its surface, and met each board member's eyes. "I understand your concern for profits, share price, and our company's reputation. But I'd like to ask a far more important question. What are we really here to build? A business that chases profit at any cost, or one that balances success with responsibility to our communities and to people?" The tension in the room thickened. Uncertain looks flickered among the members. Sarah pressed on, her tone strong yet sincere. "Recently, I witnessed something in Milbrook that we often overlook in our boardroom decisions. The real value of kindness, integrity, and social responsibility. These qualities don't weaken us. They make us stronger, more sustainable, and genuinely supported by the communities we serve." Richard cut in, his voice frosty with disdain. "That's idealistic drivel, Sarah. Are you living in a fantasy? How long do you think a company can survive chasing fairy tale values? We're not a charity. We're a business. Don't distract us with pretty words." Sarah held his gaze without flinching. "I'm not trying to distract anyone, Richard. The truth is, the world is changing. Consumers and stakeholders increasingly care how companies treat society and the environment. If we continue to ignore that, we'll lose both customer trust and our own core values." Richard leaned forward, a challenge in his voice. "So, what do you propose? Shutter our profitable plants to appease a handful of small communities?" Sarah nodded firmly. "No, we can and should adjust how we operate. We can invest in those communities, hire local workers, and launch social and educational programs. The long-term benefits will far outweigh any short-sighted gains we chase today." Furious, Richard shot to his feet, his glare menacing. "You're undermining everything we've built over the years. I can't accept this. It's irresponsible, and I won't let you jeopardize the future of this company for another day." Sarah remained standing, unshaken by his rage. She turned to the rest of the board, her voice edged with emotion, but crystal clear. "I believe each of us still holds faith in something beyond bare profit. We have the chance to make a real difference, not just financially, but socially. Give me the opportunity to prove it." Richard pivoted to the board members, stoking their fears. "Don't be fooled by these sweet words. She's already shown she can't handle the pressure or responsibility of this role. We need a leader who isn't swayed by fleeting emotions." Sarah faced Richard directly, her eyes cold yet filled with disappointment. She took a step forward, her voice unwavering. "Richard, it's you who are driven by fear. Fear of change. Fear that your power and interests might be threatened. I'm not here to defend my own power. I'm here to defend the true values this company should embody. If the board decides I'm no longer fit to lead, I will respect that. But let everyone remember this is our chance to redefine who we are." A heavy silence settled over the room. The board members exchanged glances, their inner conflicts plain to see. The meeting had transformed into a fierce showdown of values, two visions of Wellington foods locked in contention. Richard sank back into his chair, furious, but silent. Sarah stood her ground, her eyes shining with conviction and determination, ready to await the board's final decision, one that would decide not only her future, but the very soul of their company. The room fell into a heavy silence, each second stretching out like an eternity. Every pair of eyes on the board was trained on Sarah, some nodding in agreement, others filled with doubt. Finally, she drew a deep breath, looked each member in the eye, and spoke softly, but with unwavering resolve, shattering the tense quiet. I've given this a great deal of thought, and I realize that the best thing I can do right now is not to continue a hopeless struggle to keep the CEO title. Instead, I want to make a different decision. One I believe will reshape our future in a more humane, sustainable direction. Richard let out a derisive laugh, his eyes shining with triumph. So you're giving up then, Sarah? I always knew you'd eventually admit you couldn't handle this role. Sarah smiled gently, showing no anger at his provocation. She replied calmly and confidently. Richard, I'm not giving up. I'm choosing another path, the one I truly believe in, and am ready to devote myself to completely. Today, I formally resign as CEO of Wellington Foods, but I am not leaving the company entirely. I will purchase the entire Midwest division and transform it into an entirely new model. The room erupted in shock. Board members exchanged stunned looks, and several even rose to their feet. Richard frowned, trying to conceal the flicker of unease in his eyes. Are you joking, Sarah? You can't do that? It's utterly unreasonable and unacceptable. Sarah held Richard's gaze, her eyes piercing. Why is it unreasonable, Richard? I will use my own funds to buy that division, and I will turn it into a model of sustainable, humane business. One that respects true community and human values above pure profit. Richard's face reddened, his voice trembling with anger. You're undermining everything we've built, Sarah. You're putting your personal feelings above the company's interests. The board will never agree to your crazy plan. Sarah calmly pulled a folder of documents from her briefcase and placed it on the table before everyone. These are my detailed plans. I've done the math, and I have more than enough resources to carry out this project. I don't need board approval to make this purchase, as I'm prepared to buy at market price, which is entirely legal. But I hope you'll see this as an opportunity for Wellington Foods, not just to grow, but to create entirely new value in the eyes of customers and society. She turned back to Richard, her expression resolute and self-assured. Richard, you called me weak, but real strength comes from kindness, compassion, and social responsibility. I believe that with this new model, we can build a more sustainable future and deliver value far beyond mere profits. Richard fell silent. His mocking mask had slipped, replaced by tension and helplessness in the face of Sarah's bold announcement. At last, Sarah fixed the entire board with a determined look and spoke, her voice clear as if making a declaration to the world. Tomorrow, I will publicly unveil this plan. Wellington Foods Midwest will become an independent company inspired by what I learned in the small town of Milbrook, where I discovered the true value of sincerity and social responsibility. Within hours, news that Sarah Wellington, the powerful CEO of Wellington Foods, had resigned and would buy out the Midwest division to form an independent, community-focused company, rocked at the business world indoors. Major headlines and in-depth analyses appeared across every leading financial publication. Historic turning point, Sarah Wellington steps down as CEO to launch. Community-driven venture. A human-centered business strategy. Sarah Wellington's value revolution. Media outlets swarmed the company's headquarters, and Sarah's phone buzzed nonstop with interview requests, commentary, and skepticism. Yet instead of feeling anxious, she felt a surge of energy and confidence. For the first time, Sarah did not feel alone or uncertain in the whirlwind of public attention. Instead, she stood firmly at the center of a genuine revolution, a revolution she was ready to lead, fueled by the deep inspiration she had drawn from Michael, Emma, and the kind-hearted people of Milbrook. Sarah realized that today's bold decision marked the most important turning point of her life. It not only changed her personal destiny, but sent a powerful message about social responsibility, humanity, and sustainability. Values she believed would transform the future of business. And in that historic moment, Sarah knew this battle was only the beginning. But for the first time, she no longer felt fear or loneliness, because she had found the path that truly belonged to her. After all the upheaval, Sarah's pivotal decision had sent shockwaves through the business world. She left Chicago that afternoon, feeling a lightness in her heart. Yet her pulse raced with anticipation. As the small town of Milbrook came into view, Sarah suddenly realized that this place, once merely where she'd been stranded, now stirred her heart with an unexpected sense of eager longing. Her car cruised slowly down the narrow road into town, the roadside trees aflame with autumn gold as fall's gentle beauty welcomed her return. Sarah eased off the accelerator and froze when she saw two familiar figures ahead, Michael and Emma. Her heart pounded, a warm surge of emotion washing away all fatigue from her journey. Michael stepped forward, a radiant smile on his face, and waved. "Welcome home, Sarah." Emma darted from her father's side and flung her arms around Sarah the moment she stepped out of the car, her voice bubbling with excitement. "Miss Sarah, I missed you so much. Daddy said you'd come back, and I just knew you'd never forget me." Sarah knelt and hugged Emma, feeling the genuine warmth of the little girl's embrace until tears threatened to spill. She rose and turned to Michael, whose gentle, sincere gaze made Sarah realize for the first time that Milbrook wasn't just a place she'd stumbled into. It had become a home in her heart. "Thank you, Michael. Thank you for believing in me and waiting," Sarah said, her voice trembling with emotion, but full of resolve. Michael looked deeply into her eyes, his voice softer than ever. "I never doubted you'd return, and we all believe in you, and in the wonderful things you'll bring to this place." Then, unexpectedly, townspeople emerged from behind Michael and Emma, waving and smiling warmly at Sarah. She looked around in astonishment to see the community had prepared a heartfelt welcome. Twinkling lights were strung overhead, colorful balloons bobbed in the breeze, and a large handmade sign read, "Welcome home, Sarah." Sarah stood speechless, overwhelmed by their unexpected loving greeting. Mrs. Maggie, the diner owner who had welcomed her so many nights before, stepped forward and gently clasped Sarah's hand, her voice kind and affectionate. "Dear Miss Wellington, we heard you were coming back. We're all so happy. We threw this little party to thank you and to let you know you always have a place here." Sarah's throat tightened with gratitude. She had spent her life in lavish events, but had never felt such sincere warmth. In these people's eyes, she wasn't a powerful CEO. She was simply Sarah, a member of their small community. "Oh, I don't even know how to express my gratitude," Sarah managed, her voice choked with emotion. Mr. Peterson, an elderly resident, stepped up and patted her shoulder with rough, caring hands. "We are the ones who should thank you, Sarah. Because of you, our little town has a new beginning, an exciting future. We're proud you chose Milbrook to start this new chapter." Amid the tender atmosphere, Michael drew closer, his gaze heartfelt and caring. He spoke softly. "Sarah, I know your decision wasn't easy, but remember you'll never have to face anything alone. Emma, the rest of us, your community will always stand by you." Sarah met Michael's gaze and for the first time felt a deep affection stirring within her, an emotion she'd never believed she'd find. She smiled gently and responded, "It took me a long time to realize what matters most in life. And this place, you and Emma and all of you, this is what matters most. This is the home I've always wanted." Emma, standing beside them, happily held both Sarah's and her father's hands, her little face radiant with joy. "Miss Sarah, you'll stay here with Daddy and me forever, right? I want you to be part of our family." Sarah looked down at Emma, tears glistening in her eyes, her smile bright with happiness. "I'll always be here, Emma, because this is truly my home." A wave of love and warmth enveloped the entire town. The simple yet heartfelt celebration overflowed with laughter and genuine conversation, things Sarah had never experienced before. Under the soft glow of the lights, Sarah stood and looked at the familiar faces around her. For the first time, she understood true peace. The ambitions she once chased seemed insignificant compared to the sincere affection of these townspeople. Milbrook had not only given her a new direction, but also the greatest gift of her life, an authentic family and a true home. And in that moment, Sarah realized her life was just beginning, not with a title or power, but with love, trust, and hope, surrounded by the simple, genuine hearts of Milbrook. Time passed swiftly, and Sarah gradually realized that her decision to return to Milbrook hadn't just been the wisest choice of her life. It had opened doors to beautiful chapters she never imagined could be hers. From the heartfelt welcome on that fateful evening, she had seamlessly become part of this small town, as if she had always belonged. Under Sarah's leadership, Wellington Midwest quickly became a symbol of sustainable growth, drawing attention from the nation's media. She didn't just invest heavily in local businesses, she steadfastly implemented policies prioritizing job creation and skills training for residents. Once neglected fields, shops, and small factories were revived, brimming with new confidence and pride. Michael stood by Sarah's side through every step, supporting her not only as a partner in business, but as an indispensable source of encouragement. Their days working together drew them ever closer, their hearts intertwining more deeply with each passing moment. And Emma, the sweet little girl, had become an integral part of Sarah's daily life. Every morning, Emma would bound up to her, eager to share the latest things she'd learned at school or pitch playful ideas for the company's next product. Life was peaceful. Yet Sarah sensed something extraordinary awaiting her just around the corner. One weekend evening, as the town settled into a gentle sunset glow, Michael surprised her with an invitation for a walk. Sarah paused, surprised, but happily accepted. They strolled along a leaf-strewn path beneath amber-tinted trees. Michael led her to a secluded spot by a small lake she'd never seen before. Sarah's heart raced when she saw the sight before her. A sparkling canopy of hundreds of tiny lights creating a breathtaking scene. Bathed in that magical glow, Michael took Sarah's hands in his eyes softer than ever. Sarah felt her pulse pound, intuition whispering that this would be the most special moment of her life. Michael spoke gently, his voice trembling with sincerity. "Ah, Sarah, you've changed my life and Emma's forever. I used to think my world would only revolve around caring for Emma and fixing old cars in that little garage. But you stepped into my life, bringing light, hope, and a future I never dared to imagine." Sarah's eyes glistened with tears, her heart fluttering at his heartfelt words. Michael continued, his voice now firm and more emotional. "I want you to know that I love you with all my heart and soul, because of everything you've done for this town, and because of who you are. Genuine, compassionate, and kind. And today I want to ask you something." Michael knelt before Sarah, retrieving a small, carefully wrapped box from his pocket. He opened it to reveal a delicate ring. It sparkled bright in the enchanted light, a symbol of lasting true love. "Sarah, will you marry me? Become Emma's mother and build a real family with me?" Silence stretched for a moment that felt endless to Sarah. Tears streamed down her face as she glanced around to see Emma and many townspeople watching anxiously, their eyes full of hope and love. Emma waved excitedly, her small face radiant with joy, and called out, "Miss Sarah, say yes. I want you to be with Daddy and me forever." Sarah laughed through her tears. In that instant, she understood that everything she had ever longed for, family, love, a home, was right before her. She bent down, placing her hand over Michael's warm one, her eyes shining with happiness and faith. "Yes, Michael," she whispered. "I will marry you, become Emma's mother, and build a truly meaningful life here with you." The town erupted in applause and cheers. Emma ran forward and hugged them both, tears of joy tracing her cheeks. "Finally, I have a real mama. I love you, Mama Sarah." Sarah felt her heart beat in harmony with these two people, Michael and Emma, who had helped her discover true happiness and life's deepest meaning. Her company was thriving, but what filled her with pride more than anything were the smiles and positive changes on the faces of the local residents. In the soft glow of that evening light, Sarah looked to the future with complete confidence and joy. She knew challenges lay ahead, but she no longer had them to face alone. With Michael and Emma by her side, she had the courage to meet anything life might bring. For the first time, Sarah Wellington, the woman who had once lived in the glare of power, truly understood the full meaning of family, and with this love, her real life of fulfillment was just beginning. 1 year slipped by as gently as an autumn breeze drifting through Milbrook. The little town had been utterly transformed, donning a vibrant, new hue of vitality, love, and hope that few could have imagined before. Yet the most wonderful change was the deep shift in the hearts of every single person there, especially Sarah, Michael, and their little Emma. That morning, dawn's soft light washed over the town, painting the sky more clear and idyllic than ever. The tiny Milbrook church was lavishly decorated with pure white blossoms, creating a scene both sacred and intimately familiar. Townspeople gathered in joyful anticipation, dressed in their finest, faces alight as they awaited the special moment everyone had longed for. Sarah stood before the mirror, her heart pounding. Her simple yet elegant wedding gown hugged her petite frame, and her eyes shone with happiness laced with a touch of nerves. Mrs. Maggie entered the room, gently adjusting Sarah's veil, her voice warm with emotion. "Darling Sarah, you are truly beautiful today, not just on the outside, but because of the genuine love shining from your heart." All of Milbrook is so proud and happy for you." Sarah smiled through tears and embraced Mrs. Maggie. "Thank you so much. You and everyone here are my true family. I'm so lucky to have found where I belong." Soft music began to play, and the ceremony commenced. Sarah's every step toward the church altar quickened her pulse. At the far end, Michael waited, his gaze tender and filled with love. Beside him, little Emma beamed, cradling a small basket of flowers, looking more adorable than ever. As Sarah drew near, Michael took her hand and whispered, "At last! You're here, Sarah. I've waited so long for this moment." Looking deep into his eyes, Sarah replied softly but firmly, "I never thought I'd find true happiness until I met you and Emma. Now, I'm ready to build the life we've always dreamed of together." When the minister began the vows, the church grew unusually warm with emotion. The entire congregation listened intently as Sarah and Michael pledged to love and care for each other, no matter what life might bring. When Michael slipped the ring onto Sarah's finger, tears of joy welled in both their eyes. In that sacred instant, Emma stepped forward. Her small voice rang out with heartfelt sincerity, moving everyone to tears. "I'm so happy today because Sarah is officially my mom. From now on, we are a family forever, and I will call you Mom every day because I really love you." The church fell silent at the purity and depth of her words. Overwhelmed, Sarah knelt and hugged Emma tightly, feeling for the first time the complete, fulfilling joy of motherhood. Emma had given her the greatest gift she'd ever received, an unconditional, childlike love. The ceremony ended to thunderous applause and cheers. Neighbors embraced Sarah and Michael, sharing in their boundless joy. Even Richard Harris, who had once opposed Sarah so fiercely, sent a private letter offering his heartfelt congratulations and expressing admiration for how she had changed his view of life and business. After the service, a warm reception was held at the town square. Laughter mingled with music as guests shared stories under twinkling lights. In that moment, Sarah realized that true happiness doesn't come from status, wealth, or power, but from genuine connection between people. Amid Emma's gleeful play with other children, Michael slipped his arm around Sarah from behind and whispered in her ear, "You know, the most amazing thing is that you taught me, even with all our differences, love is the only thing that truly matters. You've changed Michael and Emma's life forever." Sarah turned and placed her hand softly on his cheek, her eyes brimming with trust and joy. "Michael, it's you who taught me what real happiness means. Thanks to you and Emma, I've never felt alone again. We truly are a family forever." As the sun dipped below the horizon over Milbrook, the three of them stood together, looking toward the future with unwavering faith. Love and understanding had shattered every social prejudice and every divide of color, becoming a powerful inspiration that spread the true values of life to everyone around them. Sarah gazed around, smiling with contentment. For the first time, she truly understood the meaning of fulfillment, the new life of love, family, and community that she and Michael were building in Milbrook was living proof that genuine love has the power to change the world, from a tiny town to the heart of every person. True happiness was just beginning.